Today's episode comes in two parts. We tried to cram Dave's story into our usual 40-minute segment, but we realized that way too much shook was ending up on the editing floor. So we decided to arbitrarily divide his wonderfully incongruous story into two parts: childhood and criminal justice, and collegiate tennis coach and the move to Lewis. We hope you'll find, as we did, that in the end, it all makes perfect sense. Welcome to We in Lewis, a show dedicated to celebrating the remarkable, creative, and energetic people who live in Lewis and are helping our community forge a collective soul as appealing as it is unique. They are the We in Lewis. I'm Kevin McGinnis. Our guest today is Dave Shook, better known throughout his career, his life, and here in Lewis as Shook. So when I use that name, I'm not trying to be rude. It's simply how he's asked me to refer to him. You've always been called Shook.
Yes.
What were you called at home?
Shook. My old man, like my mom used to go through Bob, Dave, Steve, and she couldn't get it right anyway. So my own daughter, I refer to her as Shook, so that's what I call her. I don't know. It's just easier, and my jobs, I've never had a job where my first name was used. Certainly not parole, not coaching, anything. So it's just natural.
But if something was going on in the house, were the other kids' names used? If your dad was yelling at one of you, he couldn't just say Shook.
No, he would just yell, "Hey, Shook," and you just look, to see if he's talking to you. And if he wasn't, you quick turn your head and get the hell out of there. But if he was looking at you when he was saying it, then you were the object of his attention, which,
And was that that was the generation like mine where you really did not want to catch the eye?
Right. Well, I was born when Truman was president in 1952, just like you were, I believe. And so times were different then. Like in the morning, you read cereal boxes while you ate. There was no iPads or televisions or phones or anything. So you just read the back of the cereal box while you ate breakfast and moved on.
You actually read something? You just didn't stare at your bowl? That's all I did.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
He's a former women's and men's tennis coach at Lehigh University, where he amassed over 400 Division I victories over a 27-year career, was a legendary probation officer in Northampton County, Pennsylvania, and was a member of the faculty at DeSales University. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Coastal Lawn and Landscaping. John Gordon and his team are true professionals with the knowledge and experience necessary to handle any property need you may have. Lawn care, irrigation systems, hardscaping, planting, leaves, and more leaves. It's all in their wheelhouse. Just ask any of their over 400 clients. You can find them at www.coastallandscaping.com. Shook, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Thank you.
Looking back on your career, what do you believe was the secret to your coaching success?
Well, actually, it's, of course, the players, the horses. If you bring in good horses, all you got to do is drive the van. That's not always possible. And depend upon the level you're coaching at. Division I is very tough to make it in, especially a non-scholarship program such as Lehigh University. So basically you get two piles of recruits. One recruit has played second doubles for their high school team, and they're all county and all this and that. And they have 1,500 on their SATs, but they'll never play for you. And then the ones that can excel for the program, they have 900 on their SATs and can't get in. So it's an opportunity for you to try to get out there and find the best kids that are good academically. I did a lot of recruiting from the Midwest because it turns out that kids in the Midwest have great core values. Those are the kids that have loyalty. They care about the program. They come first to study and then to play tennis, and they give you everything they have. NCAA rules allow you to practice 144 times a year, plus 25 match days. And you're putting this on top of a kid who's studying engineering or one of the more difficult technical programs, as opposed to the scholarship programs where they don't necessarily or they're not allowed to study such programs because there's labs in the afternoon and so forth. So you just have to look for the right kid and try to motivate them.
Coaches with tenures like yours are always known for a mantra. Bill Belichick was known for saying, just do your job. Pat Summitt used to always say, remember, step with your left foot, step with your right foot, breathe. What was yours?
Well, I tried to get them to concentrate. I would tell them 1 point at a time, because that's how matches are won. Matches can go on for hours. So first we play doubles. That could be an hour, hour and a half. And then they stop, take a 10-minute break, and then we play singles, 6 singles matches in college. And they could last anywhere to 3 hours. So they're mentally, they're in and out of the matches all the time. So I just always used to tell them 1 point at a time, 1 game at a time. That's how you win this. Because kids, all players really have a tendency to see the headlines. They get a lead and they see the headlines, wins come from behind and all this stuff. And actually, it's all about grinding it out. And that's what we try to do, because the kids, it also comes down to parents. So if you're a good coach, you look at the parents. And the parents, there's 2 kinds of parents in the world. One parent prepares their child for the path of life, and the other parent prepares the path of life for the child. And when you're recruiting, you're trying to look at this, because tennis is an individual sport. There's no one to dish the ball off to. If you're sick, you're tired, you had an exam, you had a fight with your boyfriend, no matter what it is. These kids come in having played the tennis circuit in the USTA. So they travel alone, they play their matches alone, they're not coached, it's not permitted. So you have to sort of get them to realize that I can do this. And there's so much adversity. And they have a tendency to play for themselves on their court. But what I tried to do, and I think that really helped our program, was to teach them that it's not about you anymore. You're playing for the person on the right of you and the person on the left of you. And those 2 people are playing for you. You can't, just because you're tired or sick or it's windy and your opponent's cheating, none of that matters. You have to stick to it and win that match for the person next to you. It's not about you anymore. So, I try to get the kids to realize that and to step up. There's so much adversity in tennis. So mental toughness is your ability to overcome adversity, wind, bad bounces, cheating, getting good coping skills when you grow up. If you have a parent who basically does everything for the child, when crunch time comes in a contest, they don't have anything to draw upon, because every time something bad happened to them, parent steps in and takes care of it. But some parents don't do that. They step back and they let the kids develop coping skills, responsibility skills. And when you look out on the court, you could tell what kind of kid they are.
You've now mentioned cheating twice. Now, we all know that cheating in recreational tennis is spectacular. Is there cheating in collegiate tennis?
Of course. When the ball's going by at such a high rate of speed, it's easy. Like, I was always a big fan of regular scoring, which means deuce, add, to win a game. And then there was a big push for no ad scoring, which is sudden death. And I kept saying, listen, you can cheat 1 point in a row, but you can't cheat 2 points in a row. So I said, we gotta keep this. But of course, there's the haves and the have-nots, and the haves are the big programs, and they changed all that. But one of the rules that we had to change was on the serve. Men's Division I tennis is the only one that does this, but on the serve, if you would serve an ace and your opponent would say, let, and they go, that didn't touch the net. Oh, yes, it did. 'Cause the weird thing about tennis is your opponent is the referee. It'd be like in baseball that you're used to.
So there's no ump sitting in a chair?
Very rarely, very rarely. So like in baseball, it'd be like the catcher called the balls and strikes. That would not be fair. But in tennis, your opponent is the referee. They decide if they got it on one bounce, if it was in, if it was out. It's really predicated on sportsmanship. And my kids prided themselves in their sportsmanship because we came from a classy school, played with class, we lost with class, and that was sort of a difference. But that's not the prevailing. Winning is very important. So in my job, I'm an educator and a coach. But at Division I scholarship programs, your job is to win. If you don't, they're going to look for another coach. So I think it's it's quite different. But the fact that you can serve and it'll just trickle over the net for an ace is better than somebody just saying that I was a let or something like that.
Did the fact that you were not a scholarship program give you more freedom than you might have had if every kid there was on a scholarship?
Well, Army and Navy are in our league, and the coaches are both close friends of mine. And when it's nice to be able to say jump, and they ask how high on the way up. When you coach in an academic school, they right away with questions. Well, jump how? To the side? To the right? How high? 1 foot? 2 foot? It just gets so they're. It's just different. So, you try to prevail upon them to do the right thing.
So during your tenure, did the sport, or you might say the business of college tennis, change?
Well, certainly the NCAA changed, and that changed a lot of the picture. When I initially started coaching, you had to have 800 on your college boards to play Division I sports. And the NCAA, every year, I'd have to fill out forms on every player, and there was a block as obvious qualifier. Because if you got into Lehigh, you'd have to have a 1,300 SATs. You'd have to have academic qualifications, an obvious qualifier. They did away with that immediately, and they ended up lowering the 800 to 700 because not enough kids were getting 700 on their college boards. And when they did that, they had to bring in, and then kids couldn't get 700. So they have now Proposition 48 players. And Proposition 48 means that you didn't get 700 on your college boards, that you didn't have a 2.0 average, because a lot of these kids grow up thinking, I'm going to be in the NFL, I'm going to be in the NBA, I don't need school, and they proceed accordingly. So now Proposition 48 allows those kids to take a full scholarship, go to college, but you can't play in the games your freshman year. So basically they practice, they travel, they do everything with the team, but they're not permitted to play in the games. And that's where when you see now at college sports, you'll see their red shirt. Well, back in the day, red shirt meant you got injured, and the NCAA reviewed your case and said you could have another year. Now, the kids, they bring them in and they just try to, there's the 12-24 rule. So you need to take 12 every semester of credits. And at the end of the year, you had to have passed 24. So their object is to bring them in the summer, get some easy courses, get some credits. So as the year goes on and they start dumping classes and flunking, they have this little base. So at the end of the year, you must have the 24. So this whole culture changed. And like one of the rules was, when I was first coaching, I would have 18-year-old freshman engineering students and so veterinary students or whatever. And we'd be playing 22, 23-year-old international students. So I played, I think my record was 2 matches in a row with no Americans on it. So all the scholarship money is going overseas to the older, stronger, better international players. And, that was really frustrating. So that took quite a while for that dust to settle. And then it came down to only the people who were in countries that required military service could be over 21 as a freshman. And that was, thank God, because it was like they were so much older, bigger, and stronger than our guys. It was almost unbelievable. So that dust settled a little bit.
During your tenure, did the expectations of not just players but parents evolve, change?
Well, I'd have to say that in the beginning, we slept 2 to a bed. You got $10 a day for food. We drove our van all the way to Florida. That's like straight cannonballing straight through to go down to play matches and spring break or whatever, and then drive all the way home. And parents all of a sudden is like, hey, wait a minute, the other schools aren't doing that. Why is Lehigh doing that? And so we started to get more parental backing financially. And so the kids can get, my boys, or the men rather, will go through 3-4 sets of sneakers a year, and the school gives them one. So they would try to, and fundraising is not permitted at schools like Lehigh. So they would donate money and to try to help out, because they were pragmatic about the whole thing. Because you get a choice. I send my kid to an academic school, or so I send them for free to a lesser school that has academic scholarships. For instance, women's sport has Title IX allows 8 full scholarships in women's tennis. Men have 4.5. So there's 2 women that aren't even playing in the match that are on full scholarship. So it gets difficult to talk a kid or a parent into, don't go for free. Pay the $70,000 a year and come to Lehigh. That's basically what recruiting comes down to. And so I would tell them, when you graduate from that other school, it's in June, it's like the corral opens up and all these thoroughbreds come charging out looking for jobs their senior year, and they're just all over the place. You don't want to be in that crowd. You come to Lehigh and you'll have a job junior year. So when you graduate, it's already waiting for you because of the network and because of the reputation. So I try to do that. And on one occasion, I heard a parent tell his daughter, listen, I'm not paying $70,000 a year so that you can get pinned, make a boyfriend, get out, get married, have kids. She says, no. So I'm like, wow, that's such an archaic way of looking at things. But that sort of thinking did prevail among some people. Others are like, no, I want my kid to go to the best possible school.
I know in baseball, and in collegiate baseball, there is a level of delusion among parents about the chances of their child turning pro. And did you have to combat that as well?
Well, yes and no. On how like our players, to recruit in tennis, you don't go to people's houses and you don't do any of that stuff. Basically, you have a number. So the kids play tournaments and they get a ranking. So first you get a middle states ranking, which is Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. That's our section of the country. There's 11 sections. So you can get ranked there. And the higher you rank, the more attention you would get from a college coach. So that part's easy. And then there's the national ranking in the USTA. So we start there first. What top 100 kid can I get? And the answer is not many, because I'm not going to give them any money, but they could go for free to other schools. But it did make a difference. In tennis, you get a reality check all the time. So you go to play another team and you're undefeated, you're doing well. The parents, everybody's got this momentum, as you say, and then all of a sudden you get smacked down by somebody, and then you get smacked down again. So it becomes obvious that there's always somebody out there better than you. So if you just try to be successful at this level and then see what happens, your goal should not be to make the pros. Your goal should be to do as well as you can for your team, and then maybe that would happen, but it shouldn't be a primary goal.
Did you treat all your players the same?
Oh, yeah. I treat everybody the same. Doesn't matter what ethnicity, what color you are, how tall you are, short you are. It really doesn't matter. I treat them literally all the same, and they do appreciate that, because there's no favoritism involved. You just hoping that I don't even notice you. If you have my attention, that means your grades aren't good, that maybe I heard that you're partying too much, or that I can look at you and see that your performance is off, perhaps. Because at this university, we have fraternities, sororities. That's why when I play Army and Navy, it's just different, because those are the people you want on the wall, and they're tough. And it took me 10 years to beat Army, and it's just that they're just really mentally tough. And I think that that's like one of the major differences.
A Major League Baseball coach once said to me that he first thought that the key to coaching success was understanding all of the techniques and intricacies of the game. He then switched and said you have to have the experience so you can master game strategy and player psychology. A year later, he switched again and said, all of that stuff's important, but what's most important was the ability to be heard. How did you make sure your players heard you?
Well, it's difficult in tennis because, like in basketball, you tell a player, I want you to do this. They go out and they don't do it. You just yank them from the game, sit them next to you, and about 30 seconds later, they're like, oh, coach, I get it. I'm sorry. Put me back in. That's nice. But in tennis, we don't have that option. Once the match starts, that's it. So
Can you not coach during a match?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
We stand on the court. We actually sit on the court, and we can tell them what to do after every point. So it's quite a contrast to high school tennis.
But all of the matches are going on simultaneously.
Yes.
So you can't do them all.
Exactly. So I used to have a saying that I would always give attention to the freshmen. Always the freshmen. As they got older and better, I would hope that they learned from the coaching they received freshman, sophomore year, and I would leave them alone. So I had a saying, freshmen are like puppy dogs. If you train them right in the beginning, you'll have years of happiness. But if you don't, they'll be pissing on the carpet for 4 years. I had a kid one time, I threw him off the team. He was a captain, and it was senior year. His picture was on the front of the media guide, and he was partying all the time, and he was going down the lineup, and it was obvious he was just sticking with it so he can go on spring break with us. So I threw him off. This is like March of his senior year. Well, next thing you know, there's a lawyer, his dad, the athletic director, and me and the kid sitting in the athletic director's office. And if I had a nickel for every time I got called in by my bosses, I'd be rich. And Lehigh was no exception. So we get in there, and he's like, You threw my kid off the team, blah, they're carrying on and everything. And so the athletic director, so you give him a chance to go get back on the team like this. And the parents are looking at me, I'm going. And my boss has said, I'd rather be fired than have to be forced to play a kid who's bad for the culture of this team. He said it's just not going to happen. And so it happened all the time. And my boss always backed me up. And
so what happened in this case?
Well, nothing. He's thrown off the team.
Oh, so they didn't make you put him back on?
No. So like the other times, they just, it's like, Shook, you have to do this or you have to do that. And I'm like, I just can't, I can't. And it's not fair to the other kids. So, I don't know. I always got away with it. I don't know how, but my whole life, my daughter just thinks somebody should just crack down on me. But until they do, I'm just going to be like this.
How did you make sure that the strength of your personality comes through all the numbers?
Well, I worked some special tennis camps every year, and at those camps it was an exposure to college tennis coaches for the kids, and we'd get to look at them because not every kid can afford to travel, can afford to play the tournaments. Parents can't be away every weekend. They have other children. There's a lot of reasons why a kid does not get the ranking that they should have. So I was a part of the College Tennis Academy, which is down in Tampa, and they used to come to Lehigh for about 12 years, and we'd have these camps, and these kids would come, and they play for you all day long, head coaches only, no players or assistant coaches work these camps. And these kids had a chance to show you how good they were. And you'd look at them and go, wow, you could beat my number 4 person, even though they had no ranking, none of that. So we tried to give the kids a chance to show that they can do it. And I can't tell you how many players I got that were unranked that ended up playing in the top of my lineup.
You also coached some Scholastic All-Americans. I think you actually coached more Scholastic All-Americans than tennis All-Americans.
I'm sure of that. And I was fortunate to, like I said, to bring in kids that really took their academics very seriously. So I coached, I think, 2 or 3 Martindale Scholars. That's the highest academic society at Lehigh. And I think there's only been 2 or 3 athletes that have ever been in it, and they were tennis players. And these people are just money. So when you have good leadership and you have people who set such high examples, you set a culture. So the important thing in tennis is culture. And I think all programs, all sports. So if you have a good culture, then when the kids come in, they just get into the culture and they keep it going. So in the beginning, coach usually has struggles with culture, but once you get a good one, it feeds upon itself. And the academic kids, they're just amazing. So I love to watch them, and I know they're all successful now. Everyone. I just was in Chicago, and some of my kids insisted on coming out to say hi to me. And I said, "What do you do now?" "I'm this, I'm that." I don't even know. They have all these letters behind their names, like an alphabet or something, and I don't even know what they mean. But I just know that they deserve it because they worked hard and they're fair, good people. I have a gigantic drawer full of notes from players who wake up years later after they have kids and they go, "Oh my God, what I put my coach through." And they'll write me a nice note. "Coach, I just wanted to say, I get it now." So I got this note last year at the banquet. And on the front it says, "You're all right, I suppose." So it's a glowing commentary to start. But she goes on to say, "Thank you for being so honest and encouraging towards me in order to succeed this season. I am so grateful for your excruciatingly brutal honesty. It has really helped me off the court too. Always being ready for what's next, getting back to your center, and keeping your head up no matter what happens the day before." And that's what I try to teach them. The tennis industry is predicated on ingratiating yourself to the person so they go to your club instead of the club across town. So, "A nice shot, Mrs. Jones. Oh, good job. Oh, you're doing great." Never been my style. I've never been any good at that. I have to be honest with them and say, "No, that's not it. That's no, no, no." And they're not used to hearing no. But some of the kids just totally embrace that. They go, okay, because they develop these dependencies. So on the way back after the tournament, they call their pro, "Hey, I can't serve. I need a lesson." "Serve? Really? A lesson? You got the ball in one hand, the racket in the other. Why don't you go out and practice? You should be able to do this. You don't need to have a pro teach you. You can do this." So that's what I try to teach them, a little independence, and carry that into life, that, you just have to persevere. That's all.
Earlier, I asked you about your mantra. Is the fact that the real mantra is, "I'm going to be brutally honest"?
Excruciatingly brutal honest. Actually, look, tennis is very forgiving. It's not like golf. Every time you swing, you got to put a scratch on your card. That's why I don't like golf much. But tennis, you could stink the whole time and still win. So you have to encourage them that, look, if things aren't going well, but they might, you just have to be positive. So tennis is acting. So no matter how bad things are going, you have to act like it doesn't matter. You got this. So you're up 5-2 and you blow the next games, and the next thing you know, you're down 6-5. You bounce over to that bench and you sit up high and you run back out there and you go, let's go. You don't put your head down and go out there and go, oh God, I just blew a lead and whatever. And so you try to teach your kids that's life too. That's how life works. You sort of hang in there and just, the late show's the great show. You just got to finish the deed and never give up. And then at the end, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I got beat, because everybody gets beat, but losing's not acceptable. But if you get beat, that's different. So just don't get out there and lose.
That's the end of part 1 of our episode with Dave Shook. Please join us for part 2, when we will talk about the extraordinary, improbable journey Shook took to become a D1 tennis coach. Don't worry, in the end, it will all make sense. Part 2 will be released in the next couple of weeks. As always, thank you for joining us, for the kind comments and encouraging words. Till next time, this has been We and Lewis, the podcast.